What's going on, y'all? This is Best Blurred, and you are now listening to my fanfic for Arcane. If you've missed episode 1 of my fanfic, I recommend you going back to review that. Although I will say, this episode is where I take a lot of liberties with character motivation, character actions, and again, the purpose of this fanfic is to make sure everyone completes their character arc by the end of the season so that they can become the League of Legends champion. So, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. After the battle on the bridge, the city is flooded with cops, but because Caitlin knows the city pretty well, they managed to make it to Jace's lab. Now, unfortunately for them, Mel is also there, and when they explain the situation with Marcus and the corruption and Zaun and everything that's going on, Mel basically undercuts everything that they're saying. You need to focus on that plan that I told you about because, you know, she pulls him aside. The more power we have, the more influence we have, the more that we can help people, right? So Mel's really getting into his head and shifting his morals. Luckily, Caitlin knows Jace well enough to also manipulate him and get the council meeting on the books. As they walk into the council room, Vi is so happy, but she's been through too much to not notice that there is a weird body language in the room, right? I think it's important for Vi to be perceptive. She's been to jail. She's been living in the undercity. She's been set up before. She tries to explain this to Caitlin, but of course Caitlin is optimistic. So they get into a little bit of an argument. Vi pushes her, and then she storms off. She's like, I'm not going to waste my time here. Caitlin tries to persuade her mother directly, but let's just assume that Mel has some sort of leverage over everyone in the room, right? So the council ultimately decides to keep the enforcers in Piltover to protect their resources, protect their citizens. The council orders Caitlin to hand over the hextech technology, but that's when we realize that Vi stole it when she shoved Caitlin. And Jace and Caitlin discover that Vi also stole the hex gloves from the lab. Afraid of what this tech could do in the wrong hands, Jace pulls out his hex hammer, and Caitlin points to an address in the ledger, and they head over to Zaun. Victor looks for remains of Shimmer to test, but there is none. The container that he has, he used it all when he did his transformation on his leg, so there's not even like a molecule that he can replicate. So now he has a perfectly working leg, but he's still coughing up blood. Maybe we get a flashback to the hospital scene that we had in episode 6. The doctor mentions that his recent kidney transplant failed quicker than the last one did, and he really doesn't have a lot of time left. And snap back to the present. Of course, we have to have the scene with Victor and his assistant. So she shows up and she starts yapping about how impressive he is, how he should go home because he needs to sleep and there'll always be time tomorrow to solve these problems. But he's not listening to her. She's basically background noise, right? Because he's trying to figure out how he can use this hextech to heal his decaying liver. Like the doctor says, I maybe have weeks left. It's getting worse and worse. I don't even know how much longer I'll be able to think at a high level. I was able to do this transmutation on my leg, and it's such an amazing achievement. Humanity could have such a glorious evolution, but I won't be around to see it. So I'm not sure if it's going to be his idea or her idea, but they do the transplant through hextech. The transmutation does fix his liver, but we fade to black on her arm going limp. Fade up from black, it's the arm of a junkie and he's taking Shimmer. Obviously we're in Zaun now. Vi maybe drops him a scrape of food or whatever. She's scoping out Silco's other HQ. Obviously he would have more than one office. And she starts on a rampage, jumps through the window, starts beating people's skulls in. Anyway, Caitlin and Jace are there, not to necessarily stop Silco because the council said that that's not what they're doing, but to arrest Vi and did steal the gloves, and those are prototypes, they belong to the government, etc. Caitlin mentioned something about the man that he used to be, the ambitions that he had, and how he used to have a moral backbone, etc. He wonders how he got so lost, and he, plus some of the enforcers that he brought with him, jump into the battle because Silco has these mechas that he's brought out. Jace pulls out the hammer, reveals that it's not just a piece of metal, but it's also powered by hextech. Caitlin can't keep up with the mechas, but she is able to snipe at a couple of the regular goons, so she is actually doing something here. And Vi and Jace are actually taking out the mechas. So maybe he blocks a couple of shots. Vi saves him a couple of times. Vi takes out a couple of the mechas, and then Jace starts shooting at the rest of them. Anyway, they start winning, so Silco starts to run away. Caitlin gives chase to Silco and the goons that he is running away with. And this is a callback to the training scene, which I feel like they added but never really did anything with. He's running, she stops,
She shoots, she's running, she stops, she shoots, etc. And so Silco's his crowd of goons is getting smaller as he continues to run away and run out of the building, etc. Anyway, the last of Silco's men is shot down, and he has nowhere really to hide anymore. So he turns around and he says they'll have to take him alive if they want him to cooperate, because he wasn't just working with Marcus. There are a bunch of other people who are in on the schemes.
Then we get another perspective on that chase scene, and it shows that Silco got away by going through a hidden passageway, and it shows that Caitlyn thinks she's tracking Silco downstairs, but she's actually going to the shimmer factory. She ends up torching the place, but not before the scientist grabs a shield and runs away. Silco turns around to see who he's negotiating with and finds out that it's been Jinx that's been shooting his men the whole time. He tries to sweet talk her, but she unemotionally shoots him right in the chest. He stumbles behind a rock and she goes to finish the job, but Silco's able to get the drop on her and throw away her gun. He stands over her with his knife and Jinx activates a bomb trap. Now they're just throwing hands. Jinx drowns Silco in the water, but not before he's able to stab her in the head with a syringe full of shimmer. She has a little bit of a seizure and she falls on top of him, and they both sink into the water. The last scene of the episode is a close-up of Silco's eye while it's becoming deformed.